Can everybody see this? I'm going to have you view it, and then we're going to analyze it at a slower pace after you view it. If you see anything that might be a puzzle piece, like a hotspot, I want you to type it in the chat.
Driver is showing some obscure driving, possibly intoxicated.
So you heard that? The police said driver is showing some irregularity, possibly intoxicated. So he saw their vehicle meander. If you heard that, I want you to type in if you think that might be a hotspot. So anything that you hear that might be a hotspot, type it in, because that shows me how much you are grabbing of the hotspots.
45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh! Subject just hit the curb.
I'll give you another tip. Subject just hit the curb, so type that in.
Correction, speed limit is 15. I'm about 3/4 of a mile into the arches, just before the gate.
Herschel's on here.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? No, park?
Oh, it is in park, yeah.
Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, alright? What's your guys' names?
I'm Brian.
Gabby, Brian? Okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were here camping yesterday and camping got just got quiet.
You should be typing some hotspots.
I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving, I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there. Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
You got it. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you. Oh, no, you're fine. I'm going to go ahead and close your door, okay? Why don't you come over here? SO229, I have the female that was in the passenger seat separated from the male. Keys are on the hood. You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, some days I have really bad OCD and I just...
She's revealing hotspots.
Beating up that man before and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him, I just like... I guess my vibe is like I'm really like in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job.
Okay.
I was a nutritionist. That was my
That's
job.
cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country. And I'm trying to start a blog.
Okay.
So I've been building my website, so I've been really stressed and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it, so that's kind of been like a, I don't know, he's like down there, I don't know, we've been fighting all morning and he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't you let you in the car? Because
told me
you're OCD?
told me I needed to calm down.
Big hotspots.
But I'm perfectly calm, I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out, and this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay?
Okay, now I paused her. Type in any hotspots that you recall her revealing from the moment that she interacted with the police officer. She revealed so many hotspots. Now, especially as it applies to now that we know she's dead. So, feel free to type in what you notice that are important things in her body language and her statement analysis regarding this case. She's now dead and he is missing. And with a raise of hand, just let me know when you're done typing in your comments, and then I will backtrack to her. We're going to backtrack, and I'm going to analyze her information. And you'll realize what you caught and what you didn't catch. The police, after this stop, offered the man, Brian, offered the driver, hey, do you want to press charges against her? He declined. And people who are familiar with domestic violence know that often they don't press charges.
You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me?
So right there, she's sniffling. So you should have typed in sniffling. That's her body language that's being conveyed. She has direct contact to the officer, so the officer could see her in, full face. She's not diverting her attention.
Park? Oh, it isn't parking. Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right?
So right there is another clue, and so whoever typed they were cooperative and polite is observant, and those are important clues.
What's you guys' names?
Gabby.
Gabby? Brian? Okay.
They both volunteered their names immediately, and they're both looking at the police officer. You can see the stress in her face already. You see she's crying. So whoever typed she's crying, and he is not crying, and he's looking at the officer.
What's going on? How come you're crying?
More sniffling. So sniffling should have been a hot spot.
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning.
We were just fighting this morning is a statement analysis hotspot. So whoever typed fighting this morning is getting yourself closer to the truth. Now, the driver is still actively looking at the police officer. He's not diverting attention. So you could have also typed direct eye contact between driver and cop.
Some personal issues.
Personal issues is another important statement analysis.
The one day we were here camping yesterday and camping got the supplies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the...
So he volunteered information. We were camping, and I'm sorry I hit the curb. And notice, his finger is pointing to the object, so that is credible. Him volunteering, we were camping, I'm sorry I hit the curb, is showing that he's being cooperative with the police before the police even ask him questions. And he points to the curb, which is congruent. What you're doing is you're looking at incongruency versus congruency to determine who's credible and who's not. So far, both of them are. Type in the word credible or not credible. I'm analyzing all of this in the seconds that for most people, they absorb it, but they don't absorb it. She's still crying through all this.
I was distracting him.
Bam! Did you hear that? I was distracting him. I was distracting him. I want you to type in the chat, did you catch? Say, yes, I caught, I was distracting him, or no, I didn't catch, I was distracting him. They hit a curb. The police pulled them over because of the erratic driving, and she just told on herself, I was distracting him. And they're both cooperative.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. So they both are what? Cooperative and polite.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
Just hang tight right there.
See, she's still cooperative. And the driver is still actively looking at the police officer. He's showing, and look at his neck. I want everybody to lean in with your neck a little. Lean in. Mimic the driver. So you see how the driver is leaning in to his point of interest. Now, if you were hiding something, I want you to pull away. So he is leaning in, meaning he is cooperating. Type in neck extension, didn't catch, or did catch. And all throughout she's crying. Notice, the driver isn't hiding anything. He's leaning in. When you are interacting with prospects, that's the kind of body language you want them to have. The driver. Everybody extend your neck towards me. Lean in. You don't want a client who's doing this. And for God's sakes, don't do your clothes when they're moving away from you, right? Bam. That tip right there can make or break a deal.
Do you mind if I take your keys and just put them on your hood?
Still sniffling.
Thank you. Oh, no, you're fine.
They're still polite. They're not resisting anything. Did you type anything that you see in her face? If not, now's your chance to type in what you notice about her facial expression. Type in what you see on her facial expression. Here's what I see in her facial expression. Number one, those trained in body language look at the feet first. Her feet are not pointing to the police officer, so she's a little guarded. Tip number two, she's hiding her hands. That supports the feet being guarded to hands being guarded. Those trained in body language don't start with the face. The brain tells the feet where to take the body. We start from the ground up. Toes aren't pointing to the cop. The hands are hidden. We move up the body. Her shoulders are slumped. Everybody, slump your shoulders. Hide your hands. The reason why I have you mimic the target is because when we mimic the target, or the suspect, or the prospect, or whoever we're dealing with, we start to feel what they are feeling. You do not want to do your clothes when your client looks like this, unless you're selling them something that's related to that kind of body language. Because you want to close when her hands are showing and her 10-digit toes are pointing to you. Now, what I just gave you can make or break your business transactions. What I just told you. Did you know what I told you before I said it? That's the value of a couple of tips that I just gave you. All right. Slump shoulders. Did anybody write slump shoulders? So toes, hidden hands, slump shoulders. And her face, my analysis of her face, unless this is hair, she's got 1 stress line, 2 stress lines, 3 stress lines. Did anybody put stress lines in her forehead? This cheek is slightly higher than this cheek. So she is showing some asymmetric mouth, which could be interpreted as contempt. I want everybody in the class to raise one side of your mouth a little bit. By raising one side of your mouth, it forces your cheeks to be elevated on that side. See this eyebrow? It's elevated more than this eyebrow. So this side of her face is distressed more than this side. The left side of her face corresponds to the right hemisphere, which is the emotional, creative side. So it makes sense that this side, the left side, is more distressed because her emotional brain is on fire. How many of you caught all that? That's the value of body language training and facial expressions and understanding what's happening in the brain. See this crease here? In Western face reading, if you have a crease here, or if your prospect has a crease here, that means that they really appreciate being acknowledged. If you have a prospect sitting in front of you and then you see this crease under their horizontal crease and it's really evident like hers, you definitely want to compliment that prospect on something you know about them. Bam! You've just increased your rapport and connection. How helpful are the tips that you've so far heard from me? See how much information and body language is right in front of us, but do we catch it? Did you miss more than what you caught? Because it's right there. Another thing, see these ears? I want you to look at your own ears. My ears are pretty flat to my head. Now I want you with your 2 hands to stick out your ears like hers are stuck out. The reason why I have you mimic the person is because then you will help you remember the next time you deal with a prospect with this kind of horizontal mark, unless it's a scar. I'm assuming it's not a scar. It could be a scar since they had a volatile relationship. Ears that stick out like this means that they beat to their own drum. They are not mainstream. They do not follow norms. That's the value of face reading. So the horizontal line and the ears help you get closer to the truth, and this is body language. See the indentation in her forehead? That's stress, unless it's a scar from an injury. So 1, 2, 3 stress lines, and her eyebrow is pulled up higher than this. This is the left side of her face, which corresponds to the right side, emotional side of her brain hemisphere. Give me a thumbs up or give me a thumbs down if you're learning something that you didn't know before. Give me a double thumbs up if you think that this would be valuable whenever you're interacting with other people. Just any one of these. Okay, let's continue. Police want to distance 2 fighting people and also to get her away from the highway. So he's trying to get her to safety. She
SO29,
follows.
I had this email that was
Okay, everybody do her hand gesture. Do her hand gesture. When you see a prospect doing this, they're covering their mouth. That is one hot spot, meaning they're distressed, they're uneasy, they're uncomfortable. And for liars, I'm not saying she's a liar, but for liars, it physically holds the mouth from telling the truth. So that's a hot spot. Are you catching all these hot spots? And they're right in front of us. You still see the stress marks on her forehead? This chick is stressed. Now, I want you to try to lift your left eyebrow like hers. Just try. I want you to try to make all the indentations and stress marks in your forehead. When you don't really feel the emotions, it's hard to lift an eyebrow, isn't it? So when you see clients with all this, don't sell them on your products and features. You build the rapport and connection first. That's how you get to the yes, because in no shape or form is this person ready to sign on the dotted line unless that's the kind of body language you would want to see before you give them the close. She's too distressed. And where is she looking? She's looking in the direction of her vehicle. And it looks like she's looking in the direction of maybe where her fiance may be. She wants to know where he is. With a thumbs up, is this helpful? Okay, she's still crying. What is she going to do with those hands? Always, always, always know what the hands are doing at all times. It can be life or death, especially for law enforcement. Are her toes pointing to the cop? Tell me where her toes are pointing. Type it in the chat. The 10 toes give you an indication of where that person's attention truly is. Is it on the cop? Is her attention on the cop fully? No. Why? Because her 10 toes are pointed where? Where are they pointed? Type in the chat. If we could see her 10 toes, which we can't, but they're at the bottom of her legs and her ankles, she's still looking at her vehicle. You see? She's not, her 10 toes are not looking at the police officer who's talking to her right in front of her. Now with your hands, I want you to put your hands like she's putting her hands. Okay? We know she's stressed. We know she's distressed. So this is pacifying, and it could be wiping sweat off of her hands. Right? Give me a thumbs up if this is continuing to be helpful to you. Who knew about the toes? Type in the chat, I know about the toes. Right? And if you knew about the toes, I bet you attended one of my previous classes. Tommy Norman, your name should be on there. What do you look at first? I want everybody in class to look at your own 10 feet or 10 toes. Look at the feet of who you're interacting with first. Now I want you to shake your 10 fingers. What's next? Know what the hands are doing at all times. So her toes and her eyes are pointing in the direction, I'm assuming, where her vehicle is. She wants to know what the boyfriend is doing.
keys are on the hood.
Now, I want you to put your hands in your pockets. Put your hands in your pockets. What did I just say? I want you to know what the hands are doing at all times. So her hands are in her pockets. She's still guarded. She's protecting her hands. Now her toes are pointing more towards the cop. Shrug your shoulders. Mimic her. Head like locked. And I want you to lift your eyebrows in the center like hers, in distress. Her body language is all congruent for a girl who is distressed. Now, when you are engaging with clients and you see distressful body language, I do not want you to mimic those body language hot spots like I'm asking you to do now. I want you to notice the body language, notice it, and then work on building your rapport and connection and relationship with that person because you see those clues. But in my training and class, yes, I do want you to mimic it so that you feel it and know what to look for. Does that make sense, Scott? All right. Her eyebrows are still pulled forward, and she's sad. She's distressed. Look here. There's indentation around her ear and her temples.
You want to tell me what's wrong?
Okay. She's still doing what? Crying. And her eyebrows are still lifted in the center. If you see people with lifted eyebrows in the center, that's sadness. So each of us in class, I want you to physically lift your eyebrows in the center upward to a triangle. And then try to have distress lines on your forehead. Okay? It's hard for us to do that when we don't feel the feelings, right, Scott and Michael and Jeffrey? But the body naturally does that when you're truly feeling distress. So you can tell liars right away on any national or international crime video if they pull up those eyebrows. Okay? And what are the hands doing? She's still pacifying her palms. You always want to watch when they are touching their bodies with their fingers. And she's doing this, and it's congruent. So remember, she was doing this before. Do you see me? So she was pacifying on her palms on her hips, and now she's moving the palms to the front of her, trying to maybe wipe the distress on her palms. Some people have sweaty palms, and she just told you earlier, OCD. Did anybody type in OCD is a hot spot? Because she revealed that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just...
See all the distress in her forehead? Right? Tommy's forehead is pretty smooth. He's not distressed right now. Oh my God, look at all those indentations. And where is she looking, everybody? Right? She's still looking at the vehicle. So her body language is congruent to distress.
Some days I have really bad OCD.
Okay, now, what did I say? Always watch the hands at all times. Everyone in class, I want you to mimic what she's doing right now. Women tend to do this more than men. So if you see a woman doing this, it means something is very important to her, and see her hands are near her heart. So she's pacifying herself with the statement, and it's close to her. It's close to her. So if you are interacting with women and they do this, what are you talking about in that very moment? Because whatever you are talking about and whatever is happening in that moment when the woman puts her hand, one hand or both hands, the fact that she has both hands near her heart means it's double the importance. Did anybody put that in the chat as hotspots? If you have body language training, you would have.
I was just cleaning and straightening up back again before, and I was apologizing.
She's
to him,
fake
saying,
crying now.
I'm sorry that I'm so mean.
Okay, did anybody, With a raise of hand, did anybody type in the hotspot, I'm sorry that I'm so mean? M-E-A-N, mean. I can't see Jeff and Dave, but did anybody catch that as a hotspot? Bam, that is a super duper hotspot. She already said in the car that she distracted him. She now said, I am sorry, I'm so mean. So she's taking accountability for her contribution to the problem. Now I want you to do this, like her hands. When you or somebody you're interacting with shows you the palm of their hand, that is a truthful and a vulnerable position. So right there she's saying, I'm sorry, I'm so mean. So she's telling the truth. She's not hiding her hands. Remember a second ago she was hiding her hands? Hands are illustrators of what the story is all about, and they show up a fraction of a second before the words. The body speaks before the words. Make sense, Tommy? Is this informative so far? Anybody give me a thumbs down? Do you see how you can apply any and all of this to your business interactions? Right? You want to show, when you're engaging with someone, you want to show them open palms like this, because that adds to your credibility and trustworthiness. You also want to see in your prospect open palms. That means that they're open to you. You don't want to see hands in pockets. Those are real tears coming down her side, but often she's dramatizing her long-winded story.
Sometimes I have OCD and sometimes...
Right there. Sometimes I have OCD. Right there. She's dramatizing that because she can... Those are crocodile tears too.
It's frustrating, not like...
Okay. I want you guys to do this. So her fingers are expanded and they are in beat with her words. So she's still credible. But see right here? Her arms are close to her bodies. So she's still hugging herself while her forearms are expressive. This part of the arm is hugging herself. Now, I want each of us to hug ourselves the way she's hugging herself right here. She's pacifying her body and trying to say to herself, it's okay, by hugging here. But the forearms are a little more extended starting here. What's your impression of my analysis so far? That gives me a gauge of how this information is landing on all of you. Also, if you notice with the people that you're interacting with, if they have prolonged eye closure as they're trying to tell you a story, that's a hot spot. It could be that they are blocking stimuli in order to recall the story better. It could be blocking the truth. We still see either those are tears or scars. It's hard to tell. Everybody see these lines on her face? Okay.
One time I just I guess my vibe is I'm really in a bad mood.
My vibe is in a bad mood. So she apologized for being mean. This is another clue. Bad mood. And I'm sorry that I distracted him. All of this tells me that it tells me a lot about her. So far, type in the chat, what impressions do you have of Gabby so far? If it's a cold beverage, you don't want to pass the cold beverage directly to your prospect or client, because the cold transfers from the glass and they'll associate coldness with you. You don't want them to feel coldness with you. So you place the cold beverage near them so that they grab it and don't associate cold with you. If it's warm, then you do want to pass the warm beverage to your prospect or client. Make sense? Valuable information? Who knew, right? Okay. Everybody done with their impression so far? Anybody interested in my impressions? Okay. My impressions from a psychology point of view is this. Immediately when the police started to talk to her, I could tell she had low tolerance for frustration. She had she had difficulty with emotional regulation. She volunteered that she distracted him. So that means that she's reckless and impulsive. She confirmed that she's reckless and compulsive and emotionally dysregulated by saying she's OCD, which is high anxiety, and my vibe is so mean. You see how I was putting puzzle pieces together? Right? And because I'm a clinical psychologist, she's starting to meet the criteria for borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disordered individuals have highly intensive, volatile, chaotic relationships. Do we see chaos and volatility in this relationship? Bam! That's the value of when you know the cluster B, 3 personality disorders of cluster B, and you know those personality traits. You don't want to go into business with those people because they will make your life miserable, and it's not worth the money that they pay you. You do not want to hire clients like her, and I deal with people like her all day long. Her boyfriend and her have a volatile relationship, and witnesses have stepped up and said they were high school sweethearts and they've been volatile in high school. And she was 22 and he might be 23.
I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I just
Fake crying.
really stressed.
I'm sorry I'm in a bad mood. I mean, I'm in a bad mood. I distracted him. We won't have time to analyze him, but you can use the keywords and listen to his. But he will show marks on his face, injury marks. She grabbed the steering wheel while he was driving. That is why they hit the curb. She gave up a lot of information about herself. I'm sorry I'm in a bad mood. I'm sorry I'm so mean.
I don't know. It's just some days
She keeps looking at the car.
I was just cleaning and straightening up back again before, and
A minimizing statement for people who want to minimize their contribution, they'll use the word just. I was just cleaning. So she was minimizing her request of him that led him.
Apologizing to him and saying,
I was apologizing to him, and notice where her hand is pointing. So she's pointing in the direction of him, and she's been looking in that direction all along.
I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I just get really frustrated. Not like mean towards him, I just like, I guess
She's babbling.
my vibe is like, I'm really like in a bad mood.
So she revealed she's mean and in a bad mood.
I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer.
She's trying to convince him.
What do you do for a living?
He breaks it. The cop broke it. Okay, everybody do this like she's doing. When you see your prospect pacifying their hands like this, it's not a good sign. She's still showing she's stressed and she has the hunched shoulders. So on your own, you can go ahead and analyze the boyfriend's part. See how much is involved in body language? And it's all right there, right in front of us. But how much do we catch? With body language training, statement analysis, and psychology, you move yourself closer to the truth. Contact Jeanette Gadati of Accurate Body Language for training and consultation so you can spot the lies, get to the truth, and avoid costly mistakes. From head to toes, the body always shows the truth.